When you think about the history of painting, it's easy to picture this neat, straight line, one style just tidily following the next. But the real story? Oh, it's way more dramatic. It's really a story of constant rebellion, where every new movement was basically a revolution against whatever came before it. So let's dive in and unravel this incredible story of artistic rebellion. So, what does it even mean for a painting to be revolutionary? Is it the subject, the technique, the idea behind it? That's the big question we're going to dig into. Because for centuries, the answer to that question was actually pretty simple, and it all revolved around one main goal.
Yeah, for most of art history, the whole point was perfection. The ultimate artistic flex was to trick the eye, to create a flawless illusion of the real world on a canvas. Seriously, think of it as this multi-thousand-year quest to completely master reality. But then, a rebellion started brewing. Artists started asking a totally different question. Hey, what if what I feel is more important than what I just see? And all of a sudden, the goal wasn't to capture reality anymore, but to capture a feeling, a fleeting moment of light, a huge surge of emotion. The new cameras could handle reality. Artists wanted to capture an experience.
And you know what happens with rebellions, right? They lead to even bigger ones. The next generation of artists, well, they didn't just want to bend the rules. They wanted to take a hammer and break the mirror entirely. Their goal was to completely shatter the old way of seeing and invent a whole new visual language from the ground up.
All right, so let's rewind and start at the beginning with that first epic quest. We're talking millennia here, from ancient cave walls to grand cathedrals, where artists were all basically part of one massive project, mastering realism. I mean, the sheer scale of this is just mind-boggling. It starts 40,000 years ago in caves like Lascaux, with these incredible drawings trying to capture the energy of animals. Then you fast forward to the Egyptians, who cared way more about eternal symbols than realism. Medieval artists used paintings to tell biblical stories to people who couldn't read. And then, bam! Around 1400, the Renaissance kicks off, and the mission becomes almost scientific, to perfectly replicate our 3D world on a 2D surface. And look, this wasn't just about raw talent. It was about technology and technique. One of the huge breakthroughs was something called chiaroscuro. It's this super dramatic use of light and shadow to basically sculpt figures on the canvas, giving them real weight and volume. Artists like Caravaggio were absolute masters of this, using this intense theatrical light that makes their scenes feel so real you could almost step right into them. This was it. This was the peak of that quest for perfection. So, you've achieved perfection. You've mastered reality. Now what? Where do you go from there? Well, you rebel, of course. And the first great rebellion in painting was this massive turn inward, a shift from painting the world out there to exploring the world in here, our emotions, our perceptions, our inner lives.
And this just illustrates that conflict perfectly. On one side, you've got neoclassicism. Think of it as the art of the head. It's all about reason, order, morality, inspired by ancient Greece and Rome. But then, crashing the party, comes Romanticism, the art of the heart. It was a direct punchback, championing wild emotions, the awesome power of nature and those chaotic feelings of being an individual. Artists like J.M.W. Turner, they weren't just painting a ship in a storm. They were painting the feeling of being swallowed by that storm. This rebellion against the old guard really hit a fever pitch with the Impressionists. I mean, their entire method was basically an act of defiance. Step 1. They left the dark, stuffy studios. They just went outside. Step 2, they painted en plein air, out in the open, to capture the world as it was actually happening. And step 3, the big one, they used these quick, visible brushstrokes to paint the fleeting effects of light. They weren't painting a landscape, they were painting the light that hit that landscape in one single unrepeatable moment.
Okay, so the Impressionists changed the goal from objective reality to subjective perception, but the artists who came next, oh, they took that idea and ran with it, like right off a cliff. They didn't just want to change the rules of painting, they were getting ready to completely shatter them. And the bridge to this crazy new world, the key figure, is this guy, Paul Cézanne. He loved what the Impressionists were doing with light and color, but he felt their paintings were a little flimsy. He famously said he wanted to make Impressionism solid and durable. So he started breaking down objects into their basic geometric forms, trying to find their underlying structure. This little tweak he made was about to have massive consequences, because Cézanne's experiments opened up this totally radical new question. For centuries, a painting was from one single viewpoint, right? The artist's. But What if you tried to paint something from the front and the back and the side and the top, all at the exact same time on the same canvas? Yeah, you get Cubism. This is what Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque did. They took Cézanne's ideas and just blew them up. They shattered objects into these geometric planes, showing you multiple perspectives all at once. This completely destroyed the idea of a painting being a window onto the world. It wasn't a mirror anymore, it was a construction. This was the definitive break from 500 years of tradition.
And after Cubism, the floodgates just flew open. The 20th century was this explosion of different isms, each one pushing the boundaries even further. You had the Fauves with Matisse, liberating color, painting yellow skies and red trees just because they felt like it. The Expressionists distorted the world to show their inner anxiety. The Surrealists, like Dali, painted the bizarre logic of our dreams. And finally, abstract expressionists like Jackson Pollock ditched objects altogether, making the pure emotion of painting the subject itself.
Okay, so after about a half-century of artists turning inward and shattering the canvas, the next rebellion was, surprisingly simple. They started to look outward again. But not at nature or history, nope. Artists started looking at the world that was right in front of them, the world of billboards, comic books, and supermarkets.
You gotta remember, the 1950s changed everything. Post-war America was booming. A whole new generation grew up just soaked in mass media, advertising, and celebrity culture. And for these artists, that commercial landscape was their nature. That was their reality.
So this led pop artists like Andy Warhol to ask this really provocative question. They look at a Campbell's soup can or a comic strip panel and just ask, wait a second, why isn't this art? They rebelled against the moody, serious, abstract world by embracing the bright, loud, commercial images of everyday life, and in doing so, they blurred the line between high art and low culture forever. So when you step back and look at this whole history, you see it, right? The story of painting isn't some neat, tidy timeline. It's this messy, brilliant, ongoing conversation, a cycle of tradition and rebellion, where each new voice is arguing with the ones that came before. The Renaissance rebelled against flat, symbolic art by mastering realism. Romanticism rebelled against cool-headed reason by screaming with emotion. Impressionism kicked the studio to the curb and went outside. Cubism blew up the single viewpoint that had ruled for centuries, and pop art rebelled against the very idea of what high art was supposed to be. Every single one was a revolution. Which, of course, brings us to today. So what's the rebellion now? Well, it's complicated. For the first time in centuries, there's no single dominant establishment style to rebel against. Art is global, it's diverse, it mixes painting with video and performance art. The conversation has basically splintered into thousands of different dialects all happening at once. And that leaves us with this final, massive question. In a world of infinite digital images, AI-generated art, and virtual reality, what does it even mean to be a painter? What are the fundamental rules that are even left to be broken? That's the question the next generation of artistic rebels is going to have to answer.